This is Kevin Altieri, director of Batman the Animated Series.
This is best friend of the show, Monica Cabina, artist and colorist on Batman The Adventures Continue.
And this is the DCAU Review.
Hosted by Cal and Liam. Streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everyone, to this very special bonus episode of the DCAU Review. I'm Liam. With me, as he always is Cal. And Cal, as mentioned, as we continue to run low on original DCAU episodes to review, we are, of course, very happy to take a look at some of those extracurricular DCAU adventures we have access to via the wonderful DCAU tie-in comics that we've talked about. We've talked about a few over the years, mostly as they were coming out, but now we do have the fortune of looking back at another episode or another issue of a DCAU tie-in comic, and as we're getting around to the spooky season, this one appropriately features quite a few monsters for the Dark Knight to contend with.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, the if you didn't notice, if you're in the continental United States, the air may have been getting a little bit crisper. See pumpkins everywhere. It means we're officially, I think we've actually been there since like the beginning of August, based on how things go nowadays. But we're in the spooky season. And you know what? Believe it or not, as we review our final episode here, at least in the original runtime or original airtime, in the month of September, and then we move into October, we've got a lineup of spooky, creepy, scary things coming your way. So all Batman related. We're excited to talk a little bit about that later on. But today we are reviewing The Batman Adventures Volume 1, issue number 21, whose story is entitled House of Dorian. At least Act 1 is. I missed. Remember when the early issues of Batman Adventures Volume 1, they would break it into different acts, and each act would have a different like title. I don't think they do that. They abandoned that trope at some point. But for this one, we have the House of Dorian, and plenty of well-known artists and names that you might recognize here. So we have Kelly Puckett and Mike Parobeck the artist. We have Rick Burchett, who is the inker, and then we have Rick Taylor, who's the colorist. So, and we have, as far as the writer, that's one Michael Reeves, who we talked about last week. Liam was he wrote several episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and had quite a hand in that. So this feels very much like one of those things where if you're gonna size it up, does this fit into canon of the actual show here? I think we can maybe talk a little bit about that at the end here, see how that lines up here. But I think that has something in its favor at this point. And you have somebody that actually worked on the show that was responsible for writing for this particular issue. So excited to tackle this spooky, scary monster mashup of different scary villains that Batman will be taking on today, and maybe even sharing some of our childhood memories of this issue and how it was censored for us.
Absolutely, can't wait. We'll definitely talk about that. But yes, as you mentioned, this is we have a lot of monsters, and they're all returning characters from Batman the Animated Series episodes, at least one each, or a couple in one of our characters' cases. But yes, we will get into this as we open up. It's a dark and stormy night, and we get right into the action with a giant hole being blown in the side of the wall of a cell at Arkham Asylum, and we figure out that is in fact the cell of one Emil Dorian, who folks might remember as the insane doctor who lived on an island outside of Gotham. You know, because there's an island like right outside of Gotham, and had done some experiments. He was really obsessed with turning people into cats, but also he had an ape man, which shouldn't be allowed. So he didn't stick to his gimmick. But you may remember that he created the character. He tried to turn Catwoman into a literal Catwoman, and also had his sort of pseudo son Tigress, and was attempting to sort of create a new master cat human race. I don't know, but Batman put a stop to that, and was able to reverse the process on Selena, and apparently took Dorian to Arkham. But as we see here, it is quite literally an act of God. There's no benefactor at work here. Lightning struck the side of Dorian's cell, and he walks out into the rainy night, very excited to be out, and on his birthday of all days. But we cut from there to Batman in Commissioner Gordon's office, and as they are catching up, apparently Batman. I believe this was taking place in the previous issues. Batman had been away in Nepal taking care of a case, and so he asks Jim Gordon what's been up since he's been gone. As Gordon lets him know that in fact Dorian has escaped Arkham, and that here's where they sort of recap the events of that Tyger episode. And Batman notes that wherever Dorian is, he'll want revenge, and so he won't go far. And pulls the disappearing act on Gordon, as he often does. We then cut to another lab where we see one Kirk Langstrom mixing some chemicals in his test tube as Dr. Dorian shows up. Not the guy from Scrubs. Dr. Emil Dorian shows up here and attacks him, shoots him with a syringe. And what, of course, would that syringe be full of when you attack Kirk Langstrom? It's, of course, the Man-Bat serum. But for the purposes of the plot, it's a Man-Bat serum that allows Dorian to control the Man-Bat. So we see the Man-Bat unleashed in all his glory, and he's instructed by Dorian to go find Batman and bring him to Dorian alive. So we see Man-Bat swing off or fly off into the night as Dorian ponders what sort of evil deeds he'll get up to once he has Batman in his clutches. At this point, we cut back to the aforementioned island that we first saw in Tyger, where we see a man at the top of a peak on that mountain shouting for Dr. Dorian, claiming that he needs help and that he has money, he'll do anything he can, and that Dorian's his last hope. Unfortunately, wouldn't you know it, as it always seems to be in Gotham City, it's a full moon.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that this is not just any random rich guy looking for kicks. It's, in fact, the Wolfman from the episode Moon of the Wolf. Although as soon as he transforms into his wolf-like form, he immediately trips and falls down a hill, which is really funny. And he happens to land and transform back into his human form as he is accosted by the one sole remaining resident of this island, that being Dorian's old charge, Tigress.
That's right. Yeah, they just happened to run into each other, and Tigress apologizes, not realizing, thought he was just a man. That's why he wouldn't have anything to do with him. We see Tigress is sort of in self-exile still here on the island, noting that he doesn't have any interest in going to man's world or visiting the big city because it's not a place for him. But we learn that this wolf man, does he have a name? Does he introduce himself?
I don't think he does in the issue, but it's Anthony Romulus, of course, is the character from the episode, who was like a rich guy, sort of a compatriot of Bruce Wayne's, and also I believe like an Olympic level athlete.
Okay, forgive us. We reviewed that episode on 118 of the podcast, so it might as well be, decades ago at this point that we reviewed it, because it was in 2020. So if you want to check out the review of that episode, check out episode 118 of the pod. If you want to and if you want to review Tyger, which is the Tigress episode and the turning Catwoman into a cat episode, that's episode 117. A hell of a 1-2 punch there they did in production order. They were really feeling this whole monster mash thing. But yes, back to the issue and less commentary here. We see Mr. Romulus having this conversation with Tigress, trying to bribe him to take him to Dr. Dorian. And Tigress mentions that he's not sure where Dr. Dorian is at this point, but he's not on the island. So Romulus suggests that he maybe could help him find Dr. Dorian in Gotham, because that's where Tigris believes that Dr. Dorian could be. He mentions that in their conversation that Selina Kyle. Uh, Tigris mentions that his lost love, Selina Kyle, is sort of there as he sort of feigns and mentions her name. Romulus notices that he's sort of feigning over her and decides that he can take him to Selina, if all he will do is just help him find Dr. Dorian. So at that point, we have Tigris reluctantly agreeing after Romulus sort of brings up those feelings once again that Tigris has for Catwoman, specifically Selena Kyle. We cut back to the Batmobile where we have Batman and Alfred talking about Batman's investigation of where to find Dr. Dorian. They note that there have been several different mutagens that have been stolen. And just as Batman is talking to Alfred, Batman Bat swoops in and interrupts the phone call, causing the Batmobile to crash. Batman does the smart thing, which is when he's driving, he now gets off the phone. He realizes it's not safe to talk on the phone and drive at the same time. So he does what's right and gets off the phone, but not before Man Bat smashes the Batmobile into the side of a building, knocking Batman unconscious, and then rips the roof of the Batmobile right off like it's a tin can, bringing an unconscious Batman with him. We then awaken in Dr. Dorian's lab, which looks a lot like a torture chamber. Guess he just had this one lined up, right? He just found it someplace abandoned with all this equipment, and he's got Batman.
Unless this is Langstrom's lab that he's holed up in.
Oh,
they don't really make that clear.
Yeah, it could be. Well, we'll say that. But Langstrom has a medical table with binds on it, so, and chains. I don't know what Dr. Langstrom's into. That's his own business. He does on his own.
What him and Francine are getting up to in their off hours.
That's right. That's their own business. A married couple can do what they like on their own time. Sorry, this is quickly devolving. But we see Dr. Dorian is in Batman's face. Batman's captured. He talks about all of the torturous things that he's going to do to Batman, that he's been dreaming it up. And he's got a whole bunch of chemicals around. So he says maybe he'll do some experiments on Batman. But he stops short of performing any of those experiments by saying that the party's not complete yet, that he sends Man-Bat, who's still under his mind control, out to fetch Selina Kyle, that Batman does his best to try and trick Dorian into believing that Selina Kyle has left Gotham, but Dorian mentions that he was given celebrity magazines while he was in Arkham Asylum, and the gossip magazine kept him abreast of everything that's going on in Gotham, including that celebrity Selina Kyle is still out and about. So that doesn't quite work. We then cut to Tigris and Romulus again. They have now moved into the city. Tigris is sort of, boy, he's a sad sack in this issue, isn't he? He's just moping. He's an emo guy. He's just sitting on top of a building in the thinker pose, really just moping around, saying he can't find Romulus. He's sad that he's there. He doesn't belong there. He's this weird monster that nobody loves, and nobody will want to be with him, not even Selina. But Romulus reminds him that he promised to take him to Dr. Dorian, so Tigris agrees, since he promised that he would hold up and hold his word. So Tigris then, as they're galloping past, jumping over rooftops, Romulus points out where Selina Kyle's apartment would be, and they see a bat-like creature swooping about. Romulus tells him to look out, that it's Batman, but it isn't Batman, of course. It's Man-Bat. And Man-Bat they are there just in time to witness Man-Bat breaking into Selina's penthouse, capturing her and taking her away, as Tigris follows quickly after, leaving Romulus behind on the rooftop, sort of chasing after Man-Bat. We then cut back to Dr. Dorian's lab, where Man-Bat arrives with Selina in tow, and he drops her off, and he's got a second creepy lab table with binds on it that he's able to listen again. Whoever's thing this was, they knew what they were doing. They know what that place.
Uh-huh.
So they he's able to put Selena in binds and on a table of her own. Batman is there still captured, and Man Bat is doing his best to assist also. And that's when Dr. Dorian pulls out pulls out some more medicine, and it's at that point we see a very angry Tigress break through the wall just as it appears that Dr. Dorian is about to kill Selena. Tigress is there to defend the love of his life, Selena, and to make sure that Dr. Dorian doesn't kill her. Selena is aghast. She cannot believe that Tigress is still alive. They thought he burned up in that fire on the island, and he offers at that point to take Selena home. But Dr. Dorian, being the manipulator that he is, decides to offer Tigress something that he's always wanted, perhaps something that would allow him to continue to manipulate and get his way after all of this and still doing the Batman. He's offering to perform an experiment where he does a mind swap and swaps Tigress's mind into Batman's body. It's mind transference. He'll not only give Tigress a human body, he'll give him the best human body in all of Gotham, is what he offers him. And Tigress, while seemingly confused by this, appears to be considering it as we cut to Romulus, who is doing his best to search through Gotham to find Dr. Dorian before, oh no, it's too late. He's transformed once again into that howling wolf creature, and now he's running about Gotham. So we cut back to the laboratory of Dr. Dorian, where he's got this weird zany contraption that of course has two little helmets on it that is apparently going to complete our mind switch and set up our final act for this issue.
That's right. So yeah, Selena looks on quite horrified, trying to plead with Tigress not to do this, though Tigress claims that the only way she could ever love him would be if he were human, though she clearly correctly points out that, well, I would never love anyone who would do the thing you're about to do. But he's apparently not swayed completely by it, and as Dorian remarks, how much fun he'll have, because not only will Tigress be transferred into Batman's body, but once Batman's brain is in Tigress's body, he'll be able to torture him for weeks without him expiring. But before Dorian can complete the swap, incoming through the window, there's a lot of broken walls and windows in this issue as the Wolfman shows up to enact his revenge on I guess on Tigress for leaving him on that rooftop. And so of course Dorian six man bat on him. We get our big monster fight as Batman slowly frees himself. He's able to tie up Dorian as the monsters continue slugging it out, as now Tigress gets into the fray as well. He gives Selena to Batman, tells her to get her out safe, but that even though he hates Dorian, he is still his father, and so he can't leave him to the he can't literally throw him to the wolves in this case. He has to go back and try to save him as the building lights up in flames. Batman and Selena escape as we see all three of the monsters and Dorian caught up in a big melee as the fire continues. Batman and Selena escape the building just as we get the earth-shattering kaboom that Marvin the Martian was always looking for occurs in this building. And we get one final panel as we see Batman has wrapped his cape around Selena's shoulders to try to comfort her, and says that he's going to go back and check the fiery remains of the building and to see if there's even a small chance that perhaps Tigress could have survived, because you never know. And Selena repeats that even as both of them look on, seemingly aware that this time no one's getting out or coming back to life from such a wild explosion. And that's where we wrap up our issue here. Yeah, a bummer of an ending there, but look, overall this is fun. It does feel like our idea was just, let's get all our monster characters characters in one issue
Hmm. Hmm.
and have them fight. Um, which is fun. We do get that, and we'll certainly talk about the art and all the fun there. In the case of like the characters here, I mean, Man Bat I think is a pretty classic villain, though I think it's I always wonder, is Man Bat thought of as like a classic villain of the series just because he's in the first episode? Like, if he was like episode 4, do we talk about Man Bat as much as we talk about him? I feel like I don't know. Does he get as many toys and stuff? But
Question.
that being said, like other than Langstrom and Man Bat, it's like the Wolfman and Tigress are not particularly interesting characters, which is why they had one-off appearances and were never brought back to the actual show.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I feel like beyond the novelty of just getting like the DCAU or the Batman the Animated Series version of like the old Universal monster movies together, like Wolfman meets the Mummy meets Frankenstein or whatever.
Hmm.
Like I other than the fun of that, I didn't love this issue. I think the Dorian character is interesting. Just being like another one of those guys we were kind of talking before we went on the air. It's like it's him, it's Langstrom, and it's Dr. Milo, who I guess you would call like the fathers of splicing in the DCAU. So I guess it's interesting to have him back in that way for what it eventually sets up in retroactive continuity. But yeah, overall, I thought this it's all right. It's fun to see all these characters together, but it's like Batman and Selina are neither one of them are particularly active in it. They get, Batman gets knocked out while he's driving and then is strapped to a board, and basically the same thing for Selina. So it's like it's kind of like it's just happening, and Batman and Selina are kind of the witnesses to this crazy monster mash we've got going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. It does feel like the idea was just, and we've talked about that even with episodes in the show. They start with an idea of wouldn't it be cool if, and then you work back from there and kind of write the story around there. I guess it does make somewhat sense that Romulus is looking for a cure, and he was kind of like done in by this thing. He's kind of tired of this. He's tired of this Wolfman persona and trying to get rid of it. So why would you not go to the scientist guy who had his own island, I guess? And um, you do kind of add a little bit here with furthering the idea of the monster that's in love with the woman. I mean, there's some King Kong in here with Tigress and Selena for sure, and the idea of the monster loving the woman, but the woman wants nothing to do with him, and him even though he sort of redeemed himself at the end of the Tiger episode, he does here sort of revert back, and it kind of makes him an unsympathetic character, which kind of undoes that. But he doesn't. It's not like he was a major character. It's not like that redemption arc was very strong, or there was even any hint that he was even still hanging around very much at the end of that episode. So yeah, I don't it's a fun issue to flip through. The story is pretty light, I would say, all things considered. I think the heaviest thing is the fact that we have this scientist who just wants to torture Batman. Like that's his whole motive for the thing. He wants to get revenge on Batman, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just gonna torture the hell out of Batman any way that he can, in the most cruel way possible. So, uh, again, I don't know. It doesn't really explain where he got this machinery from. He's just always had like a mind swapping machine, or maybe it wasn't like real and it was just gonna fail anyway, and it was a way to get Tigress on his side, and it was going to kill both of them. Maybe if you include that, or that comes out at some point, it would make a little more sense. But can't rewrite or relitigate a comic book from nearly 30 plus years ago. So at this point, yeah, I'd say it's a fun story. It's certainly not one that would be on my must-read list. I feel like if we're looking at like a
Mm-hmm.
must-read list here, it's goofy, it's fun. I don't think it contradicts any Batman, any canonicity here as far as the show is concerned. I think we can talk a little bit about how, if anything, this may even further the idea that we have in the DCAU of the scientists that are eventually responsible for one of the big storylines in the future Batman's Rogues Gallery. So, yeah, it's fine, it's fun. I remember, I mean, my memories of this issue are, as we sort of alluded to at the beginning, was because we were young and we had this. It was sort of censored by our dad because he was worried it was like the images of the monsters were going to give us nightmares. So I just remember that like he put stickers over all of the like spooky images in this of like the Wolf Man, so I just remember looking in the book and there was like they were literally like basketball player stickers. I don't like just generic basketball players playing basketball over
We
top of
had Glenn Allen Hill or somebody on our Overman Bat's face.
very, very strange. Shout out to Dad. He just didn't want us to have nightmares, but also
For sure.
completely ruined the comic book. Thank God we have wonderful applications such as the DC Infinite Universe app, which may or may not have this issue on it. But it's a wonderful application, Liam.
It sure is. Yeah, that is definitely the first thing I thought of when we did this issue was our own trying to sneak peeks at what exactly was going on under the stickers. And it's funny because I also remember I don't remember seeing Moon of the Wolf or Tyger um on I don't think we had either of those episodes on tape, so I only saw those I think for the first time when the DVDs came out.
Mm,
um so so I also like I didn't really know who these characters were. So even when I would like try to read it, I wouldn't really understand who any of these characters were besides Manbat.
right.
So that was always a bit confusing for me anyway. But so yeah, it wouldn't have, the context would have been lost on me perhaps anyway. But yes, that is the forbidden fruit of anything involving like Manbat or Clayface. Was always made me want to watch them more. I think when I was a kid, or read them more in this case. So yeah, it's like it's fun. I mean, I think everybody, Mike Parabeck's art, as we can get into talking about that, as you mentioned him on pencils, Rick Burchett on inks, and Rick Taylor on colors. It's a great looking issue. I mean, there's the just right at the start, the big explosion and the city silhouette with the lightning striking, and Dorian sort of pumping his fists as he walks through the gates of Arkham is a lot of fun there. And then yeah, we got the thing that struck me about this, I guess this is both a plot and a visual thing. I feel like we really leveled up Man Bat for this story, both in like physical size
He's
and like
huge.
he's just like he's gigantic and he's wrecking the Batmobile. Like I know he's strong. Like he like picks up a desk and throws it pretty easily in on leather wings or whatever. But I didn't necessarily get the sense that he could like smash up the Batmobile by himself.
Yeah,
So that was like, wow, they really. He throws the thing around so much that it knocks Batman unconscious while he's buckled inside the thing. So like they really do make Man Bat maybe even more physically formidable than we had seen him previously in the series. And you do get that sense that he's really kind of hulking. So you could, depending on your whimsy in life, you could either just chalk that up to Mike Parabeck, how he drew Man Bat, or you could say it's, Dorian's formula is, has steroids in it or something that
sure.
made him even bigger and stronger than the regular Man Bat serum or whatever. But either way, that I feel like that's the most fun and interesting part of this is yeah, Man Bat taking to the skies and attacking the Batmobile, and then when he sort of when he smashes in the window and grabs Selina out of her apartment. I feel like Man Bat's kind of our star of the show among our creatures here.
Yeah, he is certainly used, I think, the most here. I will say, just backtracking a second here, the thing that always bugged me about I love the cover of this issue because it has all three of
Mm-hmm.
our monsters and Batman's like swinging away on a grappling hook, and he's got Catwoman in his arms. Number one, Catwoman's not the issue. Selina's in the issue. Catwoman is
Mhm.
not. So that's a little bit misleading. Secondly, Tigress is white on the beginning or on the cover, and he's very, very gray. And I understand they probably wanted to differentiate the grays between the Wolfman and Tigress and the way that it looked, but he looks like I don't know, a
Mhm.
snow leopard or something like that, or like a
Yeah.
angry sort of like polar bear man or something, which he is not, obviously. So that always made me upset was that Tigress is not that color, and yet he's that color on the cover here. But yeah, it's interesting because we do get another. We only got the 2 episodes of Batman the Animated Series with Batman Bat, obviously, but he does appear in several issues of tie-in comics, including this issue. There's another, I think, solo issue with him on the cover, if I recall, and then there's an issue
Mhm.
of the Batman and Robin Adventures also that sort of continues his story and has him to continue to evolve beyond what he was in even in this story further. So, yeah, it's interesting that the comics, especially the tie-in comics here, use that character a little bit more and return to him, despite having that sort of resolution to the character on the show. So I don't think this undoes anything because I think we can see that Dorian is the one who manipulates him. Dorian, having worked with him before, was aware of who he was, an old colleague and knows of his transformation. So the fact that he's able to use that to his advantage for this and sort of make him his gopher, his overpowered gopher at that is certainly interesting. I think the fact that we get him being involved in that final fight also just feels like the Wolfman's a little like tacked on. That's all. Like I get it. Again, we know why the
Yeah.
idea is everybody fight everybody, but it feels like he just kind of shows up and maybe it's because he's a mindless beast at that point. He just joins in the fight, but doesn't seem like he's got a stake in this very much.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was trying to go back and remind myself what happens in that episode at the end, which is that he gets struck by lightning and then falls into a river. So of course, and I think you hear a wolf howling at the end of the episode, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily show you that it's him
Mm-hmm.
specifically. Whereas Tigress, you do see him like standing on the cliff at the end of the
Oh,
episode.
that's
So we
right.
knew Tigress was alive. But the Wolfman, I think, was a little bit more ambiguous as to his death. So yeah, like bringing him back and bringing Tigress back for that reason, and then blowing them all up anyway, I thought was kind of like, okay, well, you brought them out. Obviously, we know that Langstrom continues on in his own stories in the tie-in comics. I think he even pops up in Gotham Adventures. That's the only
Mm.
TNBA version of Man Bat we get, in fact. But yeah, I think it's interesting that they you bring all these characters back, but maybe part of that is, well, we need to give them, in case they ever come back in the show, we need to basically put them all back into this like ambiguous place, since we don't know
Right.
where, if any of these characters are ever used on the show again, we have to like play it like, oh, Batman doesn't know if they're alive or not. So, but and I don't know if that came into play or not, but or if it's just like, well, it's a bunch of monsters, so of course at the end, like any horror movie or monster movie, you have some ambiguous scene where it looks like, is this the end of the creature, or will it be back to wreak havoc one day? We don't know. So maybe it's a little bit of both there. But yeah, like it's like I said, I think that's fun. We do get our final, thankfully we do get our big splash page of the three monsters with Dorian in the mix, and Batman and Selina kind of looking on in the background. But I do love that page. One of the final of the issues before we get the big explosion is the three monsters sort of finally locked in combat together, all with their various sound effects going off around them. I think that's a really really great page.
Yeah, I
And
think
uh and you
it's one of
kind
those
of had
things.
a note.
I would say
I
it's
was,
one of those things that in modern comics, I know splash pages. I think some of it is because you want to tell more of a story, and maybe it's just sort of a days gone by thing. But I feel
Mhm.
like in these older comics, especially when we're looking back at this series, they utilized those splash pages a whole lot more. You have almost two to three, if not four pages per issue, sometimes smack dab in the
Mhm.
middle of the comic, and you're not used to that. I feel like in modern, it's used sparingly. I'll say that. It's certainly not used as often in modern comics. Um, and yeah, I kind of miss that.
Absolutely. And then you also, I feel like my only other visual note here is you had an interesting theory as to maybe who the look of Dorian in this issue resembled at the very least, whether intentional or not.
Yeah, it's interesting. There is a I mean, he obviously appeared in the show and he's got sort of a elongated chin and a longer nose and his hair's parted in the middle. He just kind of looks like I don't know. He just looks like a guy. Maybe Willem Dafoe or something like that. I
Mm-mm.
from that era could possibly have been the base of the character. I'm not quite sure, but interestingly, there's like one or two panels, and there's very specific panel in this where Dorian is trying to come up with this idea of how he's going to manipulate Tigress, and he's sitting there stroking his chin, and the image itself gave me vibes of both John Glover, of course, the voice of the Riddler, and Lionel Luthor on Smallville, and many other small
Mhm.
roles. He was Doctor what's his name in Batman and Robin as well. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So it gave me some John Glover vibes and just the way that I think from his eyes up, it's sort of very expressive in that way, but also gave me some Kevin Conroy in the way that he just kind of looks.
Hmm.
So again, I don't know what Mr.
Yeah.
Puckett used as a specific reference here. It's definitely his own style, obviously, but it's not quite what the actual episodes Dr. Dorian looked like. So I just wonder if he wasn't having a little fun in his inspiration there.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know if that's just, yeah, that's Mike Parabek's like propensity to give everybody like a sharper jawline just made him look a little bit more like those DCU actors. But yeah, definitely a fun a fun little note that we had in our visual section. Yeah, I think that begins to head us towards the exit. We already kind of talked about our theorizing as to this being like a Dorian being a founding father of the splicer stuff in Batman Beyond. We know what is it? I believe it's in the Doomsday Sanction where they have the big roundtable meeting at Cadmus and Dr. Milo is there and mentions something about Langstrom's research being a big help in his animal project or something like that. So I wonder if Dorian deserves a little credit. I know in some of the what I think we have dubbed in previous episodes as the Dini verse. The maybe canon to Batman the Animated Series until proven otherwise. Paul Dini written comics over the years. I think it's in Harley Loves Joker. He uses Emil Dorian as a character in there because there's a character called Grissom that is another animal human hybrid that Harley meets. And then also I think in the Mad Love novelization that came out a few years ago that Paul co-wrote, I think they make Emil Dorian like a compatriot of Harley's, or he also is featured in that book as well. So clearly there's some love for this character in the DCAU, and I do feel like maybe we look at it. And of course, most famously, perhaps the Penguin does credit Dorian in Batman: The Adventures Continue for creating the show's favorite character, that being the great Mr. Wing.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, it's his greatest creation and the one that has l left the most lasting impact here on the DCAU review, of course. That Mr. Wing, above all and everything, is Dr. Dory. So for that and that alone, I would recommend this. This is a prequel. You can clearly see the wheels were turning
Hmm.
here with Dr. Dorian on what could be his next move after perhaps failing in this instance. And I mean, we don't see Mr. Wing here, but he clearly was responsible for moving to that island in the south of America and creating Bird City at some point between this issue and and whatever the Adventures Continue takes place. So that's uh that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Love it. Canon until proven otherwise, as we always say. But the one thing is for sure is that Mr. Wing comes from Bird City and he was kicked out for being too radical. We can all agree on that. So, from there, we will begin to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to this special bonus episode. Appreciate folks. As mentioned, we've got some real life stuff where we needed a kind of a shorter thing to review this week. We hope everybody appreciates and enjoys these. Always, as we start to do more of these comic reviews, we definitely want to hear from you, the listeners. Is there a certain issue or storyline from the tie-in books, whether that's Batman Adventures or Superman Adventures, Batman Beyond, any of them really? We can we'll take that under advisement. If you want to reach out to us on our social medias at DCAU Review, you can find us there on Instagram and Twitter/X. Those are the two best ways to get in contact with us. But you can also hit us up on those ancillary ones like your threads and your blue skies and stuff, and even Facebook technically. So wherever you are, you can let us know what you think of this issue and also what issues you might like to hear us cover in the future. This was a lot of fun, but another great way to support us, of course, besides following us on social media, is when you're listening to the show, make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you listen to us on. Make sure if the app lets you rate the show to give us 5 stars. And if it lets you leave a review, leave a review. It can just be a couple sentences if you want, but if you give us 5 stars and leave a review, we will read it out on the show and even send you a little gift. So that's a great way to support us for free. If you'd like to support us more directly and monetarily, you can of course head to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. That is where you can donate to us. You can do a one-time donation, or you can also become a monthly supporter and get a question read out on the show that way. So that's another great way to support us. And of course, you can check the links in our show notes. Wherever you are listening to this, you can make sure you're subscribed to us on our new YouTube channel. And you can also head to our store and pick yourself up a sticker or a hat or a shirt or something. Those are all the great ways you can support us. And we thank you for doing that. And we hope you will continue supporting us. As Cal alluded to earlier, we are heading into the official start of the spooky season with October on the horizon here. And so we thought it was time to do another Elseworlds month, a full month of Elseworlds reviews. But we're sticking in one particular series. So, Cal, let's talk about what folks can expect starting next week.
That's right, Liam. For the very first time since its debut on the wonderful Jeffrey Bezos streaming service, we are going to head back to the world of Batman Caped Crusader. It's been a little quiet on the Caped Crusader front. I other than a couple of writers dropping hints here and there that they've written some episodes. I believe the phenomenal JMD Mateus mentioned on social media that he wrote an episode
Mhm.
that for season 2. So it sounds like it's in some sort of production place somewhere, and we know that it was renewed for a season 2, but it's been pretty quiet. Will it debut on Amazon Prime at some point in the next calendar year? Who knows? We'll find out. But until then, we can at least look back at season 1 of Batman Caped Crusader. And Liam, we're going to pick up where we left off just because it is sort of an episodic type feel to the way that this series goes. There are threads that kind of pick up here. So we're going to pick right back up where we left off, which is with episode 5 of the series, which is, on paper, it may not seem very spooky, but this one is a creepy one. This one is a little bit creepy, and I think it's so creepy that we need to bring perhaps a guest of honor with us to talk about the episodes. So you're not going to want to miss it as we cover next week's episode, The Stress of Her Regard, which is the introduction of the official Harley Quinn character for this Batman Caped Crusader universe, a very controversial character, I feel like. It goes right along with this universe's Penguin, with being the most complained about on Twitter X character chain in this show. Will we agree? Will we like it? Tune in and don't miss our special guest joining us next week on this very special edition of the DCAU Review.
Absolutely can't wait to talk about Caped Crusader. We've got clowns, we've got ghosts, we've got vampires, we've got adult men dressed in diapers. A lot of scary stuff to talk about coming up when we talk about Caped Crusader next month. But until then, I'm Liam.
I'm Cal.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Neither of us are the men in the diaper, just to be clear. Bye-bye.